Welcome to the St. Joseph Radio Presents live program, broadcasting to you from the Rome of the West, St. Louis, Missouri. The program that for over 30 years has brought you eloquent speakers from across the globe to help explain, clarify, and evangelize the Catholic faith. Our program covers a variety of topics relating to current issues and occurrences in our daily lives. Now, with the aid of technology, we are able to bring the gospel message to the four corners of the world, where Christ himself did say, "Those who have ears ought to hear." It is our hope at St. Joseph Radio that through these programs we can help evangelize the world and change one soul at a time. Now, here is your host to introduce today's guest and topic.
Good afternoon and welcome to St. Joseph Radio. My name is Mark Serafino and you are listening to Man to Man, a program for men, about men, hosted by men. My co-host Mike Hayworth is not able to be with us today, but we do have a special guest who's here in the studio with us, and I'd like to introduce you to Steve Rupp. He is the president of Missouri Right to Life, and we're going to have a conversation about men's place in the pro-life movement. But before we get started, Steve, can I ask you to start with a prayer?
I'd be honored. Thank you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. This is a prayer for courage. Dear God, give me courage, for perhaps I lack it more than anything else. I need courage before men against their threats and against their seductions. I need courage to bear unkindness, mockery, contradiction. I need courage to fight against the devil, against terrors and troubles, temptations, attractions, darkness, and false lights, against tears, depression, and above all, fear. I need your help, dear God. Strengthen me with your love and your grace. Console me with your blessed presence and grant me the courage to persevere until I am with you forever in heaven. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you. That's a powerful prayer.
Sir. Certainly is. And boy, is it apropos right now.
It sure is. It sure is. Well, let's get started by talking about Steve Rupp. Can you tell us and the listening audience something about yourself?
Born and raised in St. Louis, and for those that are wondering, CBC High School, and class of 71. And met my beautiful wife, Debbie, when we were in high school. And we'd been married 50 years.
Wow. And
we met at a hockey game that I was playing, and she was watching somebody else, and I whisked her off her feet. Sure. At first she thought I was a knucklehead, but that's okay. But in any event, so we've been together for a long time. I just lost Debbie last week,
and our
actually,
condolences.
After 50 years of marriage.
Yes.
And she would be very happy to know I'm here tonight,
well,
talking about this important issue and talking about love and family and God and grace.
Yes.
She would be very, very happy.
And you know what? It is such just a real measure of you and your love and grace that you're moving forward in a way to show and display and speak about love and love of life at every phase. And that's just such a beautiful thing and something we can all learn from. So right. I thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Well, you're the president of Missouri Right to Life. So I guess the first thing I'd like to know is, have you always been pro-life? How did you get involved in the pro-life movement?
Well, yes, I have been pro-life my whole life. Raised in a strong Catholic family, one of 8. And I always considered myself pro-life, but I never did anything about it. I just would, in conversation, oh yeah, I agree with that, and I believe this. I got involved with the March of Dimes many years ago, and was asked at one point to join the National Board of Volunteers. And in that position, I had the ear of the president of the March of Dimes. And they had just, no sooner than I joined this board, they had just issued a grant for embryonic stem cell research, human embryonic stem cell research. And I voiced my displeasure and was told that, well, this is the way it's going to be. This is the wave of the future. And there was a bishop from Rhode Island who was on that board as well, and I went to him, and he had been on the board for quite some time, and he was very happy to have another Catholic on the board. And he said, well, maybe the two of us will be a strong enough voice that maybe we can turn this tide. And he passed away about a week later, unfortunately.
Oh, gosh.
And so I was kind of alone, and I certainly could not be a part of an organization that would fund something like human embryonic stem cell research.
Of course not.
So I went to the president and told her that I was going to be resigning, and and they were, I think they were, quite frankly, a little happy that I did, because they lost the bishop, and then so in any event, the long and short of it was, I now had this volunteer gene that I needed to do something. And Debbie, my wife, the next day at Mass, ran into a woman at Mass whose husband and she were involved in the Respect Life Apostolate for the St. Louis Archdiocese. And she said, well, it just so happens we need a treasurer. Our treasurer just moved out of town. You think Steve would be interested? And Debbie said, yes. And so I became the treasurer at the Respect Life Apostolate. This was back in the 90s. And I said, I'll be the treasurer, but I can't add. And they said, well, it's really kind of you don't have to add stuff. So I started my journey in the pro-life arena with the Respect Life Apostolate back in the 90s. And it's been fabulous ever since.
God took control of the steering wheel there.
He did.
And he pointed you in the direction that he
The fact that
needed
Debbie mentioned this to a woman she had no idea was involved with the Respect Life Apostolate, and just said, oh, Steve had this thing happen to him, and it was, this is, what is it? Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. And I think this is one of those God moments.
So you go from being involved in Respect Life to Missouri Right to Life.
Right.
And maybe you could tell us, what is Missouri Right to Life and what is its mission?
We are an affiliate of National Right to Life, which is in the Washington, D.C. area, and there's an affiliate in every one of the 50 states. Missouri Right to Life is the official affiliate for the state of Missouri. And basically what Missouri Right to Life does is we educate people about the life issue. There's a lot of people that don't know about embryonic stem cell research, human cloning, things such as that. They don't know some of the basics. So we try to educate people. We advocate. We endorse candidates for office. And that's a huge job, to try to find candidates, to promote candidates, to get pro-life candidates to run. And then when we help them get elected, then we go to Jefferson City and help them frame laws that will restrict abortion and hopefully end abortion. And so we've had an opportunity to work on over 52 laws with our legislators in the course of that 50 years. And we got to the point where the Missouri Right to Life and our legislators were able to get abortion banned in the state of Missouri.
And that's an incredible feat.
Huge feat.
And one that's under imminent threat right now.
Right.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about this.
The abortion is banned in the state of Missouri right now, with the exception of the health of the mother, the life of the mother. I shouldn't say the health of the mother, the life of the mother. And the reason I changed that is because the health of the mother can mean anything.
Right.
The life of the mother means that the mother's life is threatened. That's the only exception. And this is under attack from a number of different people that are a part of the abortion industry, the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, et cetera. And what they've done is they've crafted what's called initiative petitions. And an initiative petition is the ability to be able to get on a ballot a petition to become, in this instance, to literally change the Constitution of the state of Missouri to enshrine abortion in that Constitution. That's going for the whole ball of wax there. They're not trying to create a law or some kind of a resolution. They are going for changing our very Constitution, which is almost impossible to change going forward. If they're able to do this, it's almost impossible to rescind that. And so the abortion would be enshrined in the state of Missouri from the moment of conception to the moment of birth. And they would have taxpayers paying for abortions. Mothers and fathers would have no say in the abortion decision of their own child.
Wow.
I mean, and people who are performing abortions won't even have to be doctors.
Ooh.
And they would have no liability. People that are performing abortions, whether they be abortion doctors or somebody, your next door neighbor that comes over and performs an abortion, would have no liability.
So in your opinion, what are you hearing from the Missourians about this issue?
Well, we've done some polling, and we've hired a national polling firm, and the majority of Missourians are pro-life. And that's a good thing, obviously.
It's a great thing.
We've had some great successes. I mentioned before that we've got 52 laws that are on the books, culminating with the trigger law that banned abortion in the state of Missouri. So people are obviously in the state of Missouri. They're electing pro-life legislators that are going to Jefferson City and passing these laws and restricting abortion to the point of having it be banned. So the state of Missouri is behind us, but the devil has got a way to be able to get around things like that.
Well, so where is the threat coming from?
The threat is coming from the abortion industry.
Right.
The threat is coming, when
who are not necessarily Missourians.
No. Excuse me. A lot of the money going into to fight this is coming from out of state, coming from George Soros and Bloomberg in New York, and the Hollywood faction, Steven Spielberg and people like that are sending money to the abortion industry to be able to do these things, to be able to fight the pro-life community and what we've been able to do and stand for here in the state of Missouri. And they're fighting with everything they have, and they have a lot of money.
And Missouri is a big target for them, isn't it?
It is. Missouri has led the United States many times in legislation like partial birth abortion started in Missouri. The Supreme Court case that went to the United States Supreme Court started in Missouri. So we've led the nation oftentimes, and we were the first state in the country after the overturning of Roe versus Wade to ban abortion. Within minutes, we banned abortion. We were the first state to do that. And so they want to come after us for that because we are leaders in the pro-life community in the state of Missouri.
Right. A defeat here in Missouri for them would be a giant flag.
Yes.
That they could shine all around the country. And that is what makes this so important for us as Missourians to not be complacent. We almost have to go at this as if our backs are against the wall because, by the way, they kind of are.
Yes, they are.
And we have to be vicious in a sense with our enthusiasm, with our campaigning and with our work to overcome this.
Yes.
So the name of this program is Man to Man.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a man who's the president of Missouri Right to Life. And I would think many listeners might be a little bit surprised that there would be a man in your position because for the most part, I think the way the media portrays the pro-life movement, when they portray men, they portray them as insignificant and people who are easily dismissed and taken out of the conversation by simply saying, well, you can't bear a baby, so your opinion is not valid.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you'll see in a news clip. But men are involved in the pro-life movement, and they're involved at a variety of levels. And maybe you could talk about where men fit in this fight.
This isn't a woman's issue. This isn't a man's issue. This is a human issue. And as human beings, we are responsible for each other to some degree. Yeah. And that child in the womb has a mother and a father. So for men to be completely taken out of the equation, which in most states, the man has no say-so whatsoever in the abortion decision of their own child. If they want to save the life of their child, they are completely muted. And that's terribly unfortunate because this is a human issue.
Right.
And men are the fathers of those children, and the husbands are the partners, if you will, of those women that are bearing those children. That should be a decision made by both of them. But as it affects the culture, that men have increasingly in our culture been muted.
Yes, very much so.
We are made to, and I have had what you said to me just a moment ago. I have had that said to me many times at fairs and talks and things like that. You can't bear a child, so you have no say-so in this whatsoever. It's not your body; it's my body.
That's right.
And so they try to change that narrative and take the man completely out of the picture.
And it's interesting that taking the man completely out of the picture is a part of what is going on in the crisis of manhood today overall. On a previous program, Mike and I discussed the whole idea of a man cave, where the man gets to have a space, usually outside of the home, a garage or a workshop, where he has a big screen television, a refrigerator, and whatever, I'll call them toys, that he may be into. And that's his space to go to. And it sounds wonderful, as a man, who doesn't want to do that and watch sports and, you don't have to bother mom. But if you really think about that picture, you are now outside of the house and mom's inside with the family and she's got everything under control and you're not needed. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. You are listening to St. Joseph Radio. Thank you for listening. Let's go forward now a little bit and talk about the idea of where men are. We know where they fit, but where are men now in the pro-life movement? What do you see?
Well, the population is basically 50-50. And unfortunately,
do you think they're 50-50 because
excuse me,
they're genuinely it's split down the middle in opinion, or are they 50-50 in part because of a lack of knowing and understanding?
Well, I'm talking about the population itself.
Okay.
The population of the United States is about 50-50, men and women, somewhere in that vicinity. And the abortion camp, if you will, is weighted, unfortunately, way to women. Men, you hear very, very few men coming to the front and speaking on behalf of abortion because they know that the women in the abortion camp are the leaders.
Right.
So the men are taking a secondary position and are usually very quiet about this issue. And in the pro-life movement, we're 50-50. There are as many men as there are women involved in the pro-life movement. And I think that's wonderful because it's a human issue. And as humans, if we're 50-50, we should be 50-50 in this fight as well.
And there's a balance there in that.
There's a balance, exactly. Because we're believe it or not, we are made different. Men and women are made different.
Be careful now.
Yeah. Well, we are the hunters, the gatherers.
Yes.
You talk about the man cave and things like that, which is a kind of a sidebar of that. But we are there's masculinity that was given to us by God.
Yes.
And it's incumbent upon us as men, I think, to be able to take that masculinity and do good with it, lead with it. And whether it's leading in our families or leading in our communities or in our businesses or in the pro-life movement, we've got to be leaders in these movements. And alongside with women, and again, to my knowledge, we're about 50-50 in the pro-life movement. The Missouri Right to Life is as many men as there are women. And it's wonderful to see that because the other side is women, 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 women.
Yep. Yeah, and that idea, women, 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 goes back to something you said earlier about men having absolutely no voice in the life of their child in utero.
Right.
And it's just striking that, men, are you listening? You have no voice in the life of your child. The discretion or what is a conflict in that discussion is that outside of the utero, the courts are filled with men fighting with their spouse or their significant other over the life of their child and visitation rights. Mm-hmm. But somehow, absently in utero, that child doesn't exist, and that's a huge disconnect.
Yes,
that we really needs to be corrected.
Sure.
Education is one of the keys to that.
Yeah, and one of the strategies of the pro-abortion movement is to dehumanize that child in the womb. For some of the reasons that you just mentioned. If you dehumanize the child in the womb, that it's not a child, it's not a baby, it is a fetus or it is a pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And that enables the pro-abortion people to be able to say, well, to get rid of that pregnancy isn't to kill a child, it's just terminating the pregnancy.
Right.
So they're afraid to say that's a baby. They don't want to say it's a baby because that humanizes it, right. And it's a lot harder to kill a baby than it is to terminate a pregnancy.
Right.
And so that language is very important, and unfortunately, they win on the language. I call it the illusion, the language of illusion, that's just a pregnancy. It's not a baby, but it's a baby when you want it.
Right.
It's not a baby when you don't want it.
Right. Yeah. It's really a huge disconnect that we live with. And we go through numbly as a society as if that isn't right there staring us in the face.
Right.
And it's that's one of the big frustrations
Yes.
in the pro-life movement is
Yes.
that getting people to think a little more rationally, just slightly more rationally than where they are with the ideas now.
Right. Right.
So the men that you see involved, what kind of activities do they do? What should men be doing? How should we be looking to? I say to you, Steve, I'm very interested. This program has really compelled me to want to be more involved. Where are you telling me to turn my energy to?
To, first and foremost, loving our wives, leading, modeling what a man is supposed to be in this world, and that is a leader in his family. And you said earlier, be careful with what you say about that. You know, the Scripture tells us that women should submit to their husbands, and taken just that sentence is a terrible controversy.
Oh boy!
But it's true. In every juncture, somebody's going to have to make a decision.
That's right.
And when push comes to shove, we should step up and be the ones that take the heat for making those decisions.
The responsibility and the accountability.
Responsibility. God gave us that masculinity and that hunter-gatherer mindset to lead. And we should lead. We shouldn't be afraid to lead. It's okay to lead. And we need leaders, men leaders in the pro-life movement that recognize that this is a human issue. This isn't a woman issue. The more men that we see that are in the pro-life movement, the more that's going to anger the other side because they think this is strictly a woman's issue. And we're showing them, no, it's not. This is a human issue. That's our child. That child, boy or girl, is our child. Yes. And it's interesting that the pro-abortion movement is okay with killing little girls that are in the womb.
Yes. Yes.
So we need
because
men
they don't recognize them as human.
No.
It makes it easy.
Yeah, it makes it easier if you don't put a gender to that child. Then it's a pregnancy.
Right.
Something that needs to be getting rid of.
Yeah, and that's we've created this disposable idea of life, but it's a subjective disposable.
Right.
It's as it suits me.
Right.
And it occurs to me too. One of the things that you never hear discussed is the morality that leads to a pregnancy and the lack of morality.
Right.
And no one wants to touch that. You know, the Catholic Church will touch it.
Right.
But outside of that, you seldom hear anyone speak about the idea, well, how did you get pregnant? And what led to this? And what are your living conditions? Are you married? You know, where are you in that kind of a relationship? And it seems to me, too, that's another area culturally where those of us who are pro-life, we really need to do as much as we can to continue to promote marriage.
Yes.
And to continue to lift marriage up for the amazing sacrament that it is.
Right.
And life-changing experience that will truly, literally bring you closer to God.
Right. Yeah. You had asked earlier about what can men do, and that's the basis of what we can do, as I said, love our wives, show our children that we love our wives, and then raise our families to love their wives and to love God. And if we lead in that way, we can affect the next generation, because the next generation is fallen by the wayside. They're giving into the lies of the abortion industry, and that men are not needed, and that men are idiots, and some of the TV programs and things such as that treat men like they're stupid, and that's unfortunate. But what we can do as men, Catholic men, is lead our families in a godly fashion. That's vitally important. And then have those children that we're raising in a godly way, have those children see us going out and giving our time and our energy and our talents to others, to children in the womb, to mothers who are confused about their pregnancy, and see us reaching out with love and with faith. And when they see that makes a difference in that generation.
Yes,
and the ripple effect of that can be huge.
It is enormous. It is enormous. Leading by example.
Yes.
Has so many positive attributes related to it. And one of the amazing things about leading by example is that it's rare that we actually get to realize the fruits of our leading by example. More often than not, we have no idea how we've affected. And every now and then, I think God will give you a glimpse that kind of encourages you to keep doing that. Keep leading by example.
You bet. I have a great story that there was a young man that was driving down Forest Park Avenue going on his way home from work. He's a graphic artist. And I heard this story from him the next day. He stopped in front of Planned Parenthood, and there were some people out there praying. And he said, I wasn't going to look at them because I know they're a bunch of nuts. Those people are fanatics, and I'm not even going to acknowledge their existence by looking at them. He was at the red light at Forest Park in Boyle, and he said something compelled him at the last moment, God, to look out the passenger side window. When he did, he saw a woman standing there with her head bowed in prayer. And when he looked out the window, she looked up, and their eyes caught just for the briefest second. The guy behind him honked his horn, and the light was green. He took off. And he's driving down Forest Park Avenue going home thinking, that lady didn't look like a nut. Matter of fact, she looked peaceful, almost even joyful. What could she be joyful about being at Planned Parenthood?
Right.
So he said her face was seared into his brain. And he got home, and he got online. And he looked up abortion. He said, I wanted to find out what she could be peaceful and joyful about at Planned Parenthood. And he was pro-abortion. He said, that's not a man's issue. That's a woman's issue. And he got online, and he looked up abortion. And he said, this has got to be a lie. I'm going to go to another website that described what happened in abortion. He thought that was some made-up deal. He went to site after site after site and said, oh, my gosh, they tear these babies apart. They crush their skulls. My gosh, I can't believe I'm seeing this. He said, I sat at that computer that night and became pro-life.
Wow.
And then he sat up and he started drawing. He was a graphic artist. He started drawing pictures of little children in heaven. And with that, he tried to recount that face. These were babies that were aborted, that were on clouds in heaven. And he tried to put that look on their faces that he saw on that woman's face.
Wow. And
he called the next day and told me that story, that he said, I got to let my friends know. They don't know this. None of my friends know this. Wow. That's the ripple effect of just being a witness, just being out there. And she may not know until she gets to heaven.
That's right.
That God says, come here, I got to tell you this great story about this young man whose life who changed a life.
We will come back and hear more stories like this one in just a couple of moments. You are listening to Man to Man, a program on St. Joseph Radio. Thank you for listening.
Hi, this is Matt Loggeman with St. Joseph Radio with a great gift idea. A St. Benedict bracelet, a trendy accessory for men, women, and children that not only looks good on everyone's wrist, but is actually armor for the spiritual battlefield. This unique bracelet is handmade in Europe and contains 10 medals within the braided cord in the adult size and 7 medals in the children's size. On the front of each beautiful medal is St. Benedict holding a cross in his right hand, the object of his devotion. On the back of each medal is a cross. Surrounding the back of the medal and cross are the letters VRSN MV SMQ LIVB, in Latin reference which translates, "Begone, Satan. Never tempt me with your vanities. What you offer me is evil. Drink the poison yourself." And finally, located at the top is the word Pax, which means peace. All bracelets come packaged with an informational card and a St. Benedict blessing which your local priest can administer. This gift is for everyone you love and care about, including yourself. Available from St. Joseph Radio. Check the website at www.saintjosephradio.net.
St. Joseph Catholic Radio is proud to announce the launch of SJEN TV, the St. Joseph Evangelization Network. SJEN TV is a premier online Catholic broadcasting network providing quality Catholic programming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have programming such as live studio interviews, St. Joe's Java speaker presentations, current Catholic issues, and the Pro-Life series. We're featuring the many talented speakers out of Orange County, California, and this Archdiocese of St. Louis, Missouri, including Professor John Gresham, Father James Mason, Karen Nokemper, Rick Hollerick, Bill Federer, and many more. To review the program list, go to sjen.tv or on Roku, SJEN TV. All this programming is free, and we are welcoming sponsorship of new programs. Find out more at sjen.tv.
Welcome back. This is Man to Man, and you're listening to St. Joseph Radio. Our guest today is Steve Rupp, the president of Missouri Right to Life. And Steve, before we went to the break, we were sharing stories about experiences of the example that people can set. And I would share with you that one particular day, my family and I, we were out in front of Planned Parenthood praying, And there was a young man there from Great Britain, and he had never done anything like this in his life. And he was clearly nervous and apprehensive would be the nicest way to describe his demeanor. And sure enough, within the first couple of minutes of being there, someone drove by and flashed us a not too nice finger. And the look on this man's face, he was crushed. And it really was alarming to him. And you could just tell he was ready to get in the car and go home. And luckily, I remembered a story that I had heard President Reagan's son tell about when his father was president. That one time the family was in the presidential limousine, and there were some people who were not fans of the president, and they were giving him the same finger salute that we had gotten on the street. And in telling him, I said what President Reagan did was he looked at his family and said, "Look at that, everybody. They're giving us thumbs up." And he changed the whole demeanor in the vehicle and the car. And when I told this to the young man, a smile went from ear to ear, and he went from being apprehensive to almost celebrating when someone would give us the finger, because it meant they've noticed us. For that moment, that person, even though they took the time to do something vile, they had to think about us and what we were there standing for.
Right.
And I think that's one of the great things, if you call it great, about making a visual witness to this cause.
Right. And half the game is showing up.
Right.
And that the fact that that you showed up that day, the fact that that young man showed up that day.
Yes.
And we talk about the ripple effect of what that that changed his ability to be able to be more bold.
Yes.
And not be afraid and just and leave. And that there's a ripple effect to that too. He probably went back and told somebody, "Hey, let me tell you what happened in St. Louis."
Right. That's right. Even if it's just the humor side of it, it still says, we did this,
Yep.
It made a difference,
Right.
and we made an impression.
Right.
And that's so much of how we win this battle.
Yes.
I have the privilege of teaching a group of high school students, homeschool students, public speaking and communications.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the teaching is I bring in guest speakers. And I recently had a pro-life speaker come and talk, and then we had the students wrote a paper on the fifth commandment. And not surprisingly, or they gave a speech, not surprisingly, every speech was about abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they did that was really, really marvelous is they came at it from a very passionate standpoint. Mm. They came at it with facts, and they also came at it with a little bit of feelings. And one of the things I said to them was that I think if you focus on the facts, it drives home a point, because the other team, the other side, their argument is very much emotion-based. They call them facts, but they're really manufactured
Yes.
to support the emotion, to support the sin, to support the depravity of the things that they do to get to where they are. And when you come at them with a statistic that's a fact, it really helps to defeat and deflate their argument. Do you see that in your battles?
Absolutely. I try to never go more than a sentence or two away from what is abortion. It's when I do talks and things such as that, people want you to talk about the juicy things that are in the news and the political things that are in the news. And I start every talk the same way. What is life and what is abortion? And it gets people's attention because we don't talk about those things, because we kind of skip over them and get to the juicy stuff.
Right.
Because that's what people want to hear. They want the controversy. They want to get their blood going and what have you.
Yes.
And I try to keep it simple. What is life? Life begins at the moment of conception. And I describe what happens at conception. That a mother has 23 chromosomes and a father has 23 chromosomes. The combination of those 23 and 23 is a new child with 46 chromosomes. That's their DNA. And every single one of us started that way. And nobody can argue. There's no theologian or no attorney or no judge that can argue with that. That is scientific fact.
Right.
And the party that says, we're a fact-based party, yeah, right, except for this.
We manufacture the facts.
We manufacture, yeah. And then okay, so then we go through, the continuum of life. from the point of conception to the point of implantation to the point of the heart beating and quickening and birth and all the things that happen in those in marvelous, miraculous 9 months. And establish the fact that that is life. And there's nobody that can argue with that. Right. They can try to dissuade you from saying those things, but it's the truth. And I try to stay close to that. And then when we talk about abortion, describing abortions is really difficult. People don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about those things.
No. And even pro-life people don't.
Even pro-life people don't, of course, because it's horrible. I mean, it's the most violent act that I can imagine, and it is never talked about. You see all this violence on TV, horrible things on TV every single day. But if you try to show what happens in an abortion on TV, you're shut out. On social media, you are completely shut out. You will be blocked. And why is that? It's because they don't want to hear that really is a child, and that child really is being dismembered. Right. They don't want to hear that because it calls them on the carpet. So I try to keep it there. And when I do talks and I have people come up afterwards and they say, well, this and this and this, I say, hold on a minute. Is it okay to kill a child? When is it okay to kill a child? Or I just go right to my definition of abortion is the intentional taking of an innocent human life through violent means. Argue with me on that. Tell me where I'm not right.
Right.
Every word in that
Prove me wrong.
In that definition is absolutely right. And so people, oftentimes I just get this stuttering, well, and there's really nothing that they can say.
Right.
And I hope that we can, in this initiative petition battle, do the same thing. Try to educate people on the value of life, what life is, and what abortion does to that innocent life.
It's so far-reaching. I don't think that we often reflect on 50 years later, how has Roe v. Wade affected our culture? And one of the areas that really I find fascinating is today it's very, very common to hear people say, where are all the young people? Nobody wants to work. They're all in their parents' basement. Realistically, what are the odds that there's that many kids in their parents' basement or that there's that many young people who don't want to work? There's a problem with that for sure.
Sure.
But is that the sum total of it all, that's where the problem lies? Or, as I said to someone just this past week, is it the fact that we've killed 63 million people in 50 years? If those 63 million people had been allowed to be born and live, how much different would our country be? How much different would our world be? And it's something that we just don't reflect on.
Yeah.
Because it's easier just to say it's disposable. We pretend like it never happened, but we're living the consequences of that time. And it has happened, and it continues to happen. Yeah. And a woman said to me the other day, well, they can't find anybody to work at these fast food restaurants, and nobody wants to work. I was like, ma'am, there's a good chance that those people are dead.
Yes.
I mean, sure, we're short on work, but why? Nobody wants to talk about why.
Yes. Yeah, you couldn't be more right. This has affected every aspect of life in our country, in our world, every aspect. It's created a culture of death, which is a dark culture. Ooh. And so, the darkness of the basement, we have created this whole genre of, life is disposable. You go from abortion to end-of-life issues. Now, assisted suicide is becoming more and more popular. That is born out of the abortions that created the culture of death that we now take to the end of life as well.
Yes.
That life isn't precious. Life isn't sacred. We shouldn't defend life. We should want to live our lives to what we want to do with no responsibility. But we do have responsibility. We have responsibility as being people on this earth that we're given that gift of life. Shouldn't we give it back? And we talk about being men. As men, we should be leading this charge.
Absolutely.
As we said earlier, we should be leading our families. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing.
It's what we were born to do. It's what we were created to do.
Yeah.
And there's a heroism in that.
There is.
A true manly heroism to stand up and defend life and to lead.
Yes.
And that's, again, so lacking in our culture.
Yeah.
And it's lacking as a result of so many other elements, including divorce, which is another element of, it's kind of a side by side with abortion.
No question.
They walk arm in arm, and they've created havoc
Yes.
in our culture.
Yes.
And as we've said on their program before, there's not a simple solution. No one's going to pass a law that's going to fix where we are.
Right.
It has to be one person at a time. And for us on this program, and we think for our country, it has to be men.
Yes.
Men have to step
Yes.
up, and
Yes.
men have to lead.
I read a book called, you may have talked about it in your program before, Wild at Heart
No.
by John Eldridge. Great book. He said, and I made a couple of notes, every man longs for three things: a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue.
Wow.
And you break those down, a battle to fight. What is our battle? Our battle here is battling the evil lie of abortion. That is a grand battle for we. I wake up in the morning thinking, God, what can I do today to save the life of a child, to save a mother from the horrible consequences of abortion, the physical and emotional and spiritual consequences of abortion. If I can touch one life today, then my time on this earth has been well spent. And if we think that and aspire to that every single day, that certainly is a battle worth fighting. And then an adventure to live, to provide. The greatest adventure in my life was raising a family.
Yes.
Was God putting Debbie in my path and having 4 children and now 9 grandchildren. What a great, fantastic adventure that is. I have the opportunity to affect them every day by how I live my life. And I pray that how I live my life will enable them to be able to live godly lives and raise their children and their grandchildren in God's graces. What an adventure that is. And then a beauty to rescue. I think of Mary Magdalene. Jesus rescued Mary Magdalene.
Yes.
And today we have the opportunity to rescue women from the clutches of abortion.
Yes.
What a noble thing to do, to be able to rescue that beauty that is confused, that our culture of death has grabbed, and we can release the clutches of that culture of death and abortion and the devil's lies. What more noble thing is there that we could do?
There really isn't. I mean, from the very get-go, you wake up in the morning and say, if there's anything I can do to affect and save one baby, one child, I can't think of a better way to start the day. Men, are you listening? It doesn't have to necessarily be so heroic that you have to put your livelihood aside. No one's asking that.
Nope.
We're asking that you wake up in the morning and say, my purpose as a man, please let me fulfill it today.
Yes.
And hunter-gatherers, our purpose as men is we hunt, we gather, and we protect. We nobly protect.
Right.
And yes, we nobly protect our loved ones, but it has to extend past that
Yes.
to everyone around us.
Yes. Yes.
It has to, because that's the way God wants it. That's the way God's plan for us is.
Right. And everybody can give at their own level. People say, "Oh, I'm so busy. I don't have time." Fine. Take 1 hour a week. You don't have to jump in with both feet, but do something. Do something.
Yes.
And if you do something, it's amazing how that can build, and you can find more time. You can find more opportunities, and you can make a difference in people's lives.
And that's something can be prayer. It's nice to be prayer and something active. But for some people, maybe their physical lives, it's hard for them to get out and do something. Then pray. Then spend that hour, 1 hour a week. Grow to 1 hour a day. But start with what you can do and do that and build on it. And if we do that, all of us collectively, that's how we move this, and that's how we change this world that we're in. Mm-hmm. It's not going to change for us. It's us who have created this by allowing the horrible elected officials, allowing horrible laws and accepting them. That was us, whether it was us living today or a generation before us, but it was us. It was humanity.
Yeah.
And humanity's going to have to move this moving forward.
Yeah.
And the way to do it is with seeds, as you've described, with your family, with your children, your grandchildren, being there for them, being present, being a leader, and loving them.
Yes.
Simple formula.
Yes.
Simple formula.
It really is. And you mentioned prayer, Mark. It's the most powerful thing on earth.
Absolutely.
The most powerful thing on earth. I've seen it time and time and time again. The power of prayer has the ability to be able to transform our lives and the lives of the people that we're praying for and with.
Yes.
And you know, and you think about when you're driving down we've got our cell phones and we've got our computers and we've got our radios and we've got our TVs and noise. There's something very magical and spiritual about silence.
Yes.
When you're driving down the street, turn that radio off just for a few minutes. You don't have to turn it off just for a few minutes and spend that time with God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing how he speaks to you immediately, and he will help you and he will guide you. And it does something, that silence does something in our hearts that all the noise in the world can't do.
It's one of the beautiful things about Eucharistic adoration. It's just so incredibly powerful.
Yes.
To sit and listen. You don't have to say anything.
No.
If you have something to say, go for it.
Sure.
But to simply sit and listen and let his voice work inside of you. And I'm sure you've had this where you go and you spend an hour and 2 or 3 days later, a thought comes to your mind and you think, where did that come from? And it's almost invariably, it's like, well, he was talking to me.
Yeah.
I just figured it out now, like
Yeah.
3 days later, what we were talking about. But
Right.
I hear you, and yes, I'm being moved to do something.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
It's
in our
wonderful.
lives.
You know, you had mentioned something earlier about you spoke out loud something that you wanted to remember.
Yes.
And oftentimes when I'm in that silence in the car by myself, rather than just have these many thoughts, going through my brain, I'll speak out loud. That helps me to focus a little bit better.
Interesting.
And I'm talking to God just like I'm talking to you. And he's right there. He's listening to me. And somehow the spoken word has some meat to it.
Oh, yes.
And it helps me to remember things, and it helps me to focus a little bit better. Because if I'm in that silence I'm trying to concentrate, but my brain's going 100 miles an hour.
Oh, gosh,
I'm
yes.
thinking about the guy in front of me, and I'm thinking about dinner, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about that. And all of a sudden, I lose the power of that silence. So sometimes, for me anyway, I say things out loud. And
I might
it
have to try
helps me.
that first.
It helps me.
Yeah, I may have to try that because I get lost in my thoughts, and I have so many of them, and none of them are interconnected, rarely. So you're bouncing all around with they're like to-dos in your brain.
Yeah.
And many of the thoughts can be very, very useful, something you can apply even to something like defending life. But you kind of have to sort through and pick the things that really do have a purpose and a meaning and an action.
Right.
And the guy who's driving too slow in front of you or maybe just cut you off is, as I used to say to our children when they were younger and maybe they had done something to each other that was offensive, I would always ask the guilty party. So let's just fast forward in your life and you die and you're at your judgment. Is this a moment that God's going to say, hey, when you did that to your sister, that was really cool? Or is this a moment when you say, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that?
Mm-hmm.
Which is it? And just like that, same thing with the man who cut you off. That moment, in my eternal destiny, how important was that moment?
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah.
But the moments where we can stand up and be true men, those moments build a stronger and better foundation. And I think as an older person, I think to myself, this is something we have to pass on too.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about going back to our 50 years and the divorce rate, 50% first marriages, 70% second marriages, something we who have not necessarily been victimized by this, something we need to pass on to the generations behind us,
Right.
is the knowledge that we have of the way things can be. And it wasn't perfect in our time, but it was certainly better than it is now.
Yeah.
So we have to pass along that formation and foundation that we have in manhood to help these young men, because they are struggling. A lot of young men are struggling.
Yes, they are.
And then let's go back to abortion for a minute. Young men are struggling. They're trying to identify, who am I? What am I supposed to be? They're following the world and the world's norms, and they find themselves on the end of a conversation that says, I'm pregnant. Not formed at all. Their answer is, what do you want to do? How many of them, it's unlikely that any of them say, this is not a good thing, but it's something that you and I will solve for our child.
Right.
And there's options.
Right.
And what are our options? No, it's immediate to, what do you want to do? And the young woman most likely has been affected by all of the pro-choice mantras.
Right.
That it's simple. You
Yeah.
know, end of discussion. We took care of it.
Yeah, the man acquiesces to the woman, and unfortunately in our culture, they've bought into the lies. They bought into the devil's lies of, here's the answer. The answer is really easy. Abortion. You're done. You move on with your life. And it's very unfortunate. You know, you had mentioned earlier about sexuality and that there's a responsibility that we have from the gift of God of our sexuality, that to recognize that the gift of sex is to give life and to give love in the covenant of a marriage. Anything outside of that is against God. Right. And if you're doing something like that, the question that you talked about with your kids, is this something that he is going to be pleased with?
Right.
Or is this something that's going to put a tear in his eye?
That's right.
And we have got a responsibility for our sexuality, and we've got a responsibility to the child that we've created. You know, we live in a culture that the gift of our manliness is being challenged, and we're not standing up for it.
Right.
We're backing off away from that gift. And, you know, it's called toxic masculinity nowadays.
Yes.
Which is a horrid term. It's saying that if you're aggressive, if you're enthusiastic, there's something wrong with you.
You're a man,
you got to calm down. You got to be more like a woman.
Right.
And now they're saying to women, you have to be more like a man.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, now they're saying there's really no such thing as a woman or a man.
Right.
I mean, how many times have we heard in this, our culture today, that it's a pregnant person?
Yes.
It's not even a woman, and they're not a mother; they're a parent. They're taking the word woman out of our language.
And that's the irony, is that after years of a struggle for equality for women are actually now being thrown under the bus.
It's incredible.
With men who pretend to be women competing as athletes at their level and setting records. And in their protest, women who are born women are being told, back off.
Yes.
So there's a crazy irony that's going on that, for me, I hope that it helps to just raise awareness that people say, maybe we need to rethink this.
Right. And we it's incumbent upon us men as leaders in our families to defend our wives, to defend our mothers, to defend our daughters against the evil of the transgender movement and all of that stuff and abortion. They're being sold a pack of lies.
Yes.
And it's incumbent upon us as the leaders in our families to be able to right that wrong.
Yes. Well, this has been a fantastic hour. I really appreciate you being here. Yes, time flies when you're having fun.
It went fast, yes.
Will you come back?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Love to have you. And Mike Hayworth, we missed you today, but you'll be back, and we'll have Steve here with us again.
Great.
Thank you for listening. This is Man to Man on St. Joseph Radio.
You've been listening listening to St. Joseph Radio Presents from the Rome of the West, St. Louis, Missouri. If you would like to join us in our evangelization efforts, you can order a copy of today's broadcast or any of our past programs by visiting us on our website, stjosephradio.net. That's SAINT, josephradio.net. Or call us 636-447-6000. It's all at your fingertips to help us evangelize the world, bringing the good news of Christ to everyone you meet and change one soul at a time. Thank you for your prayers and support. Until next time, may God bless you and your family. This has been a presentation of St. Joseph Radio Presents.